Hello and welcome back to College Algebra, MAT 150. In this lecture we will be discussing one-to-one functions. So what is a function? A function is something where you put in something and you get one thing out. However, there may be outputs that can be mapped by more than one input. So I can plug in multiple things and get the same output. Okay, so that's possible for examples. We just can't have multiple outputs for any one input. A one-to-one function makes it exactly what it sounds like. For every one input, there's a unique output. So the output can be traced back to exactly one input. And so, for example, if we look at something like f of x equals the absolute value of x, it's not one-to-one because if we plug in 1, well, the absolute value of 1 is just 1. But then f of negative 1 is the absolute value of negative 1, which is 1. So we have the same output from two different inputs. So it's not one-to-one. And if we look at the graph, we can see this more plainly. So again, sort of to pass to be a function, it has to pass the vertical line test. But the graph of the absolute value of x looks something like this. And it doesn't pass, and if we look, we have two outputs. So the output of y being 1 has two inputs. So if we notice this, this is sort of a horizontal line that goes through the graph more than once. So this gives us the idea of a horizontal line test. So if a function is one-to-one, graphically speaking, if and only if it passes what's called the horizontal line test. So if you can draw a horizontal line and it goes through the graph more than once, then the function is not one-to-one. So further solidifying this, if we look at the graph of x cubed, so x cubed looks something like this. It's an awful x cubed, but it's something like that. And this is our f of x. And if we look at g of x being x squared, so something like this, then in this case, f of x passes the horizontal line test. So f of x is one-to-one. But g of x does not pass the horizontal line test. They're both functions, but f of x is one-to-one while g of x is not. So not one-to-one. All right. However, g of x being x squared, okay, we have this. If we didn't have this whole side of the equation, what would happen? Or this side of the graph, what would happen? Well, we can do exactly that. We can restrict the domain from 0 to infinity, and once we do this, we're just going to look at this half, and now all of a sudden, and not my best graph ever, and now all of a sudden, this is one-to-one because it does pass the horizontal line test. So with domain restriction, of 0 to infinity, and we could do other domain restrictions that would either not be or could be, could make the function one-to-one, but we get f of x equals x squared is one-to-one. So that's the main thing about one-to-one functions. That concludes this lecture.